Hello, my new book about the industrial schools. Collared and veiled, all God's men. And the one before that was Don't Want to Know, and what's the difference? This one, Don't Want to Know, is about the general history of the industrial schools and reformatory schools in Ireland in 20th century. This one, just out now, is about the inside, what went on inside those industrial and reformatory schools in Ireland in the 20th century. Schools run by religious orders, what went on inside. And I have chosen, as you can see here in the map, schools all around the country, such as Letterfrack here in Connemara, Goldenbridge, Artane, Glynn, Cavan, Cappoquin, Cork and Dangan. And by doing that, I'm showing that this was not just in one particular area all this was going on. This was the system. The whole thing was systematic, systemic and endemic. This was the system. And there were three ways in which Ireland was different from England, say, at that time. Three ways. The first way was in England and other countries, the capitation fee had ended, but in Ireland it lingered on for a long time. And why? The capitation fee was simply whereby every child you took into the institution, you got paid a certain amount by the state. There was a lot of headhunting going on, and the difference in that and England was that England had a set fee. The second way in which the difference was the length of the sentences given out in the courts in Ireland. From maybe 3 months old or 3 weeks old even, up until 16 years of age. And why 16? Because that was the date at which the capitation fee ended. The state no longer paid for children over 16 years of age. And on the day before the 16th birthday, all these children were just put out onto the streets because they were no longer of any use. There was no more money coming from them. So that just proves to you that it was all about money. And the way in which they were used as slave labour, all the produce sold to local shops, this was all about money. And the third way the difference was in the brutality and the viciousness of the punishments. They were way beyond what was in any other country. Ireland was much worse than any other country, the viciousness that was going on in there. Now, where am I getting the evidence for this book? Well, I'm getting it from two sources. I'm getting it from the Ryan Report, of course, 2009. And I'm getting it from insiders in each of these institutions mentioned in this book. And I have a chapter on each institution. Artane, Letterfrack, Dangan, etc. There's a chapter in each one. And for Artane, the first chapter, I'm using John Cameron's book, Boy 11963, published in 2021. And from 3 years of age until 8, John was hired out. And then, when he came to 8 years of age, the age at which they could be sent into the industrial schools, he was sent to Artane. And I'm also using for Artane Patrick Tuher's book, Fear of the Collar. Again, he was fostered out. He had a happy fostering out, whereas John Cameron didn't. But they both ended up in Artane, and that is their story in their books. And then we have Baltimore, the Fisher School of Baltimore, and I've got Alfie O'Mahony's book, Survivor's Account, published 2020, 10 years of age, and he describes the terrible conditions in Baltimore in County Cork. Terrible conditions, excrement everywhere. It's all in that book. And then we've got Peter Tyrrell's book, Founded on Fear. This is about Letterfrack, edited by Dermot Whelan. He was incarcerated in Letterfrack from 1924 until 1932. And after he came out, he began to negotiate with Senator Owen Sheehy Skeffington and sent him his diaries of what life was like in there. The Christian Brothers denied everything that he said had happened. They said it didn't happen. The church didn't support him, and the government didn't believe him. And in desperation and despair over it all, Peter Tyrrell burned himself to death on Hampstead Heath in 1967 in total despair over not being believed. His book was published by Diarmaid Whelan. Diarmaid found the negotiations and the correspondence between Tyrrell and Skeffington in the National Library in Dublin in Kildare Street, and he published the book. So Peter Tyrrell's story is out there, it's in that book, and I've used that book. And for Golden Bridge, I've used the information that Karen MacDonald Byrne gave us in a recent interview, and also Christine Buckley. That was the school made famous by Christine Buckley in her late show interview with Gay Byrne. And then we have Cavan Industrial School, St. Joseph's in Cavan. And I've used information from Siobhan Waters here. Siobhan, tell us about how her mother was incarcerated there from 4 months old until she was 16. Bridget Ellen Thompson. And again, we have all that in a recent interview. And Cappoquin, Paddy Doyle, The God Squad. That's his book. St. Michael's Industrial School in Cappoquin with Sisters of Mercy. What went on there? And it is horrific. And the final chapter is Dangan. And here I've got Michael Smith's book, On the Mitch. On the Mitch was a slang for avoiding school, staying off school. And Michael began to go on the Mitch after he was raped by a certain brother in Finglas, where he lived. And every time he was raped, he avoided school for a week or so. And of course, open to gangs. And he ended up in criminal gangs. And he ended up being incarcerated in Dangan. Now, he makes two very strong points. The first point he makes is that while he was mitching, he was marked present at school. And the reason he gives that is because it was a cover-up for the brother. Because if the inspectors had asked questions, the rape might all have come out. And when he was in the gangs, just before he was incarcerated in Dangan, they broke into the old school that he was in, and he went to classroom number 1, the very room that he was raped in. And he ransacked the teacher's desk, the brother's desk, and he wrote graffiti on the board. Yet in court, they were arrested. In court, that was not what he was charged with. They were charged with stealing blazers and selling them. That was not the truth. And again, he puts that down to the fact that he was brought up on false charges. He puts down to the fact that it was all trying to cover up for the actions of the brother. Because if he had explained why it was classroom number 1 he had targeted and flooded another room, why he had done that, then it would have come out about the rape. So that book, he explains, is 2 years in Dangan, and it's horrific. So that's what this book is about. It's on Amazon now and is also in all the usual outlets as specified on my website. My 2 books here on the industrial schools in Ireland in the 20th century. Thank you for watching, and until we meet again, slán go fóill agus banach live.